We started a new sermon series last week called Walking with Wisdom from the Book of Proverbs. We'll just give a real brief little overview, kind of important foundational message last week. Maybe hop online and check it out. But just as we get in today's message, just in way of review, wisdom. We talked a lot about it last week. Let's do it briefly right now. Sometimes we got some false notion of what wisdom is. We might look at somebody who has just a ton of knowledge. I mean, these people just know so much. They know stuff about things in their field. They can speak amazingly to it, and they just seem to know so much else with facts and all these things in life. We might think, man, that person and all that knowledge, they're really wise. Knowledge has nothing to do with it, actually. Knowledge is important. We should seek the knowledge of Christ. But even in that, if we as Christians do that, we don't necessarily embrace wisdom in the process. Wisdom is kind of a step past it. It's the ability to maybe take a little knowledge, and most kind of wise knowledge will reveal to us that we don't know that much sometimes. I think one of the greatest values of education, and maybe even formal education, if you've had a chance to pursue that, is that it might teach you how much you don't know in other things. I'm not saying we're supposed to be ignorant or anything, but as we start embracing those ideas, we maybe start moving beyond just mere knowledge of things into the area of actual wisdom. Eugene Peterson, I don't know if it was, I think it was the opening to the Book of Proverbs in the Message, and you've heard my mantra on those things. They're the greatest collection of writings I've ever seen about spiritual life. It's not just facts and figures about the date and the time and the place, and those things are important. I think in his introductions to those books, I think we get a chance to see wisdom on display. A lifetime of knowledge and preaching through the scriptures he brought, and he writes in those intros to the different sections of the Bible and then the different books of the Bible. And he says this about wisdom: it is the art of living skillfully in whatever actual conditions we find ourselves in. So just key in this idea of living skillfully. As we think of that, we're starting to move in the direction of what wisdom really is. Now, living skillfully, especially as it pertains to our relationships and responsibilities. We've got a lot of responsibilities on the face of this earth, and we've got a lot of relationships in the process. We need wisdom to navigate just these two things: our relationships and our responsibilities. This is wisdom. Now, we took it kind of a notch beyond even this last week, and if you want kind of another idea of what wisdom might be, it's seeing things from God's perspective. So we grow, we learn, but then we apply to our lives those things that we grow and learn in. Hopefully they help us to live skillfully in our relationships and our responsibilities. Hopefully we begin seeing things more and more from God's perspective. As we do those things, we are growing in wisdom. Now, so much in the book of Proverbs, so many of those Proverbs, 31 chapters, have to do with our words. Maybe more than anything else in wisdom is the application of how we speak, how we use our tongues. Over 120 verses in the Proverbs related specifically to our speech. How we talk, how we communicate with other people, so much of that is involved with wisdom. And one verse kind of encapsulates it pretty well. We're going to look at a couple different translations here to try to grasp it a little more fully. So, Proverbs 13:3. In the NIV, those who guard their lips preserve their lives. Watch what you say. This is huge in scope. Those who guard their lips preserve their lives. It's like life and death is on the line here. But those who speak rashly come to ruin. A lot of power in our words. The Living Bible puts it this way: self-control means controlling the tongue. A quick retort can ruin everything. Got one gal close to the front kind of smiling right now. And the smile usually indicates that, been there, done that. A quick retort can, ruin everything. When I did more ministry with the kids in Awana, and sometimes in my hospital ministry too, I used to have a kid come forward and have a little tube of toothpaste and a paper plate, and I'd say, "Come on up here, anybody? Anybody think they can squeeze the toothpaste out of this tube? Oh, yeah, I can do that. Come up here, squeeze it all out, get it out as much as possible." And then I'd hand them a popsicle stick or a spoon, and I'd say, "Now take that toothpaste, and another one of you, put it back into the tube." And man, they'd come up and they'd try, and guess where they got? Nowhere. Our words can be that way. And it's usually the words that we regret speaking. We throw them out there, and all of a sudden, we can't get it back in the tube. It's just done. And it can feel like it has a way of ruining everything. Tongue is a powerful, powerful thing. And a huge part of walking with wisdom has to do with managing our mouths. I was talking with somebody before the service that I find myself in quite a quandary. I'm here to speak this message about wisdom in using our mouths, and probably the best thing I could do is really not say anything at all. What do I do? Wisdom usually says, sometimes zip it, but here we are. We're going to try to bring you the Sermon on the Mouth today. All right? Jesus spoke the Sermon on the Mount. Tony's going to attempt, and Tony's not Jesus. But Tony's got Jesus in him. Tony's got Jesus in him. A lot of you do too. So we're gonna seek to tackle this because this is huge. So much of wisdom, we could talk about how to get a grip on life. I guess that could have been a good sermon series title, Dewey. I just wrestled with what to call this series we came up with, Walking with Wisdom. But managing our lives better, living life better. Wisdom offers us that. And again, so much of wisdom has to do with how to use our words well. So just 3 ideas. And again, as usual, with me, it's never going to be rocket science. If I could do rocket science, I'd probably go do rocket science. I can't do that. So we keep things simple, but man, in the end, because sometimes we lack wisdom, we can fail so often in doing the simple things that we know. So really in the end, these things aren't that simple at all. These things kind of are rocket science, but on the surface they're simple. Let's seek to grasp them today. How to use your mouth well? First of all, think before you speak. Proverbs 16:23 says, "A wise person's heart guides their mouth." Okay, we're talking about wisdom. A wise person's heart. What's the heart? It kind of encapsulates so much as a metaphor. What's inside us? Our soul, our thoughts, everything that's inside. And a wise person's heart guides their mouth. Jesus had some things to say about this. We'll get to it at the end of this message. Proverbs 16:23 in the Good News translation, or today's English version, whichever you like, says, intelligent people think before they speak. What they say is then more persuasive. Now again, in some ways, this is not a great translation, but it does communicate, because wisdom doesn't have necessarily anything to do with intelligence. Seems like it does, but like we said, we can have educated fools, and we do, running all over the land. Many educated fools, and there's so many wise old grandmas and grandpas sitting there, and they're just full of wisdom. And we hardly ever get to hear from them. But we're talking about wise people, but we'll call it intelligence here. Intelligence people think before they speak. And then what they say is far more persuasive. Somebody who's always rambling at the mouth, we might have a way of eventually maybe just ignoring some of those words because it's too much. I just always think of a guy, I wish Gavin was here today, but years ago when we got out of the Army, we found ourselves attending Lincoln Hills Bible Church somehow in the early 90s. And we moved away to Portland, Oregon. We were literally willing to go pretty much anywhere in the world, and somehow, some way, we find our way back to this place. But in the early 90s, there's a guy running around here. I hope he was anyway. I think at one point he was on the elder board, and his name was Chuck Snewstead. I'm not sure, but I think Chuck has passed on, and he's received his reward. But Chuck was one of these guys. He even looked wise. He's kind of a sharp-looking dude. Carl, you remember Chuck? Yeah. He looked wise just to look at him. And maybe the look was because most of the time he wasn't running at the mouth. He was a quiet guy. Marianne would talk about Chuck, and then Marianne would be very complimentary to me. He says, "You're kind of like that." Believe it or not, there was a time when I didn't talk much, and I was kind of a quiet guy. But Chuck, when he did speak, man, it's kind of like, listen up here. Intelligent people think before they speak, and then what they say is far more persuasive. Ran across this. This is pretty good. A wise old owl sat in an oak, and the more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Let's try to be more like that bird. Here ends the poem portion of today's sermon. Well, that's a pretty good one, huh? It's good. It's what I'm trying to say. James in the New Testament is kind of the New Testament equivalent to Proverbs in many ways. James is the New Testament's wisdom book. How to live life skillfully. How to put faith into action. To have our faith go into works. But in James 1:19, James says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Say it again, James 1:19. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. I think there's a progression there. When we are quick to listen, when we are slow to speak, there's less of a chance of people becoming angry. When we are not quick to listen, when we are apt to spout off at the mouth before listening, then people have the opportunity to potentially become angry. So much of wisdom has to do with thinking before we speak. It's really hard to communicate about our Stephen ministry here in this church because our students who go through training do it for a semester, about a 4-month time frame. It's fairly intense. People have to do some kind of uncomfortable things in the midst of the training, but I'm going to try to encapsulate a semester of Stephen ministry training to you in 2 Proverbs. All right? It's pretty good. It's quite a task I'm trying to do here. Proverbs 18:13. To answer before listening, that is folly and shame. If we answer before listening, we prove ourselves to be a fool, and that is a shame on us. And I just think we are so apt to do it. I think what you learn in Stephen ministry, and man, I have gone through tons of training. Over 1,600 clinical hours of clinical pastoral education on listening, basically. And what you come away with is listening is really hard. Hearing, listening well, hard work. And we just, at least most of us anyway, some of you kind of got it. I didn't have it naturally. Just because I was quiet years ago, maybe I had an idea that I was probably a good listener, but I wasn't, even being a quiet person. To answer before listening, that is folly and shame. We are really trying to hear people. We are trying to listen to people and help them into speech that is their own. Because as they speak their own stuff, in some sort of almost miraculous way, there is potential for that person to find healing. If we don't reject them for the things we say, because we're not listening well, or if we think we have an answer. And boy, we're good, us evangelical Christians, about having answers, because we're Bible people. And the Bible is full of wisdom, and we want people to know it. But boy, even to step in too quickly with our Bible stuff can be a folly and a shame, I'm here to tell you. And I'm a Bible guy. It's true. We and our Stephen ministers go through this kind of a reworking and a rewiring of things. I had one person interview, and I've told some people, I just don't think this ministry is going to work for you. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think it's going to be a fit. But one person thought, oh man, I can't wait to get in there. We're going to learn how to give all the answers and help people fix their problems. It's like, no, we're going to do something that's going to be so much freeing for you as a minister than to have this responsibility to fix somebody else. Because guess what? You can't do it anyway. You can't fix anybody with all your knowledge in the world. Now, God can bring healing, and God might use you, but we're going to teach you how to listen. And I seek to, as I hear my Stephen ministers present their stuff when we do continuing ed and supervision, I learn from them. Because some of them are better at it than I am. It's like, oh man, yeah, that person's good. And we always have good learning, but it's all kind of about thinking before we speak. I don't know, enough said on this? Do I need to clarify somehow anymore? You know, the opposite of wisdom in the Proverbs is this, and this word is related to being a fool. Folly. So we don't want to be a fool, and we don't want to bring shame to ourselves. So we don't give answers before listening to someone else. Now, I'm up here teaching right now. There is a place in the classroom. Herb teaches. I mean, we all came from Sunday school hour. There is a place for teaching. There is a place for preaching. But somebody in pain, do you have a chance to minister to? Can I just be bold in saying probably the dumbest thing you can do is try to teach that person in that moment. It's just the way it is. So we gotta add some different things to our toolbox in our church circles, and I'm learning those things, and it's been very freeing for me to not have to be responsible to fix anybody, because I can't anyway. So I seek to grow in my listening skills. One more verse to summarize Stephen ministry. Proverbs 25. The purpose of a person's heart are deep waters. What's going on in here and in here, all this inside stuff in a person's life. And guess what? That person's life is hard. Life is hard for people on the face of this earth. The things we have to face, the things we have to do, the grief we have to suffer. On and on and on and on. The pressures we face. Man, the pressures kids have in school these days. I mean, man, both my girls, it's like they had to have their freshman year of high school. I think of my freshman year of high school. I don't know what was going on then. But they got to have like their whole career mapped out on day one, how it's going to go. And then it leads into college or vocational school. It's like, holy cow, can we just slow down here? People's lives are hard, a lot of stuff going on. And the purposes of those person's heart, that's deep stuff in there. And we're going to come along and give a quick little pat answer to something. It's just not good. It just doesn't work. I think sometimes we have some reflexes that we're uncomfortable in a situation ourselves, so we just give this quick little answer. It's like, get me out of here. Purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight, one who has wisdom even, draws them out of that heart. And good listening can do that. It is a powerful thing to connect to somebody else's soul by listening well, by offering that person understanding. Now, we don't get completely what they're going through, but we're trying to empathize. We're trying to come alongside and feel as they feel. And there is pretty much none of that going on in our world today, in the way the world operates right now. Everything is about talk, 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 talk. We got talk radio, we got talk TV shows, just talk, 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 and nothing good is going on. Really, in the end, I like to gather some information if the talk provides that, if I need to be educated on something. But, usually we're talking about interpersonal relationships with all this talk, and there's just nothing good happening because there's no listening going on. And I know good listening probably doesn't make for great TV and the drama and the stupidity that we might see. As what anger arises. We like to see the show. Watch people melt down in their anger and all this stuff. But man, we live in a messed up world. We need more listening. We need more people, and we can be those people who can do this. And I do this with people that I could say theologically disagree with in just about every way. But I'm not there to impose my stuff on them in this time. Yeah, I believe in the bottom of my heart what they need more than anything is Jesus Christ. I know that. But my words about Jesus Christ can be far more persuasive, as we looked in the last verse, as I've earned the right to maybe speak them. Because I've listened well and I've sought to understand this person. And as we seek to understand, we might actually realize, and I have many times, that, man, we're just people in this hard game together. It's not that we got to agree on everything. Let's just seek to understand these deep waters in our hearts. Okay, clear as mud. Kind of get what I'm saying? Tell me you kind of get what I'm saying, because this is important stuff. Wisdom is involved in it. To wrap up this first point, one Proverbs 18:20 kind of sums it up. Wise words satisfy like a good meal. The right words bring satisfaction. If you're in doubt as to whether you might be able to speak the right words or not, wisdom would probably tell us, maybe don't speak them. I don't know. It's an interpersonal process that we're going through. We're seeking understanding in some things before we come with what we think is the solution or our answers. You can tell why I might wrestle in my life, because this aspect of my ministry is all about telling and informing and stuff. But on another level, another aspect of my ministry, the things I'm talking about right now are so different than what I'm doing right now. But this other area has kind of informed this, and God willing, I've gotten a little bit better at this part of my ministry. And I hope when you come to me with your stuff, or that we get you signed up and hooked up with a Stephen minister, that we do well. We consider that holy ground, your struggle in life and the things you wrestle with, and that we get to enter into it. That's holy stuff. Your suffering, that's sacred ground, man. And we tread it very lightly by seeking to be good listeners and learn about you and what you're going through. But there is a place, wisdom would say, for us to use our words well. Sometimes we have to speak the truth. Spending most of our time in this first point, because I really think it's the most important. But on and on and on we could go there. Don't let that one slip away, that first point. Because, I don't know, this one isn't easy though either. Like I said, it's not rocket science. Well, no, really hard though. Really hard to have the wisdom to know when to do these things. Zip it, or, okay, time to speak a little truth. Proverbs 10:10. Whoever winks maliciously causes grief, and a chattering fool comes to ruin. Now, winking maliciously, what's going on there? I think we're talking about there's something dishonest happening. There's something deceitful going on here. And I'm just going to give you a wink over it. That's one way to handle a situation. And then another way to handle it, Proverbs are usually these kind of diametrically opposed lines. The second line is kind of the opposite of the first. A chattering fool comes to ruin. There's that word ruin again, all around how we use our mouths. Start yakking away too much. Careful. But it's really this first line that I want to hone in on as we think of speaking the truth. Different translation maybe helps us a little bit. Someone who holds back the truth causes trouble. That can happen. A lot of times we want to sit back. We definitely want to make sure we've heard things out. But there are other times. We're not always in a caring ministry where, all these great listening skills are needed. But still, we need to listen in our workplaces. We need to listen in our schools. And it's a lot of good listening isn't going on there either. But sometimes in those places, we might find ourselves in a place of needing to speak the truth. Now, why do we hold back speaking the truth? Well, because sometimes we lack courage. Because it's hard in some situations. We like to avoid conflict. Some people, it's just the way they communicate. They like to run towards conflict. Most of us, I think, in this place are not that person. We like to kind of avoid it. But that can cause greater damage later when we avoid and we avoid and we avoid. Because it can eventually lead to a massive blow-up if you're a stuffer, like some of us are. Sometimes we need to speak the truth. Proverbs 24:6. An honest answer is the sign of true friendship. You see the tension here between point number 1 and point number 2? There's tension there. And wisdom is, which way do I go? Wisdom is a difficult idea. Proverbs 24:6, an honest answer is the sign of true friendship. What's that saying? It's on one level, it's saying that dishonesty is a lack of love. You don't lie to people you love. Sometimes you got to level with them. And it takes courage. And it's hard. One author says this: intimacy is a result of truth. Truth almost always results in conflict. I probably can't really argue with that. As we talk about things theologically around here, most of the times we're in agreement, but sometimes we've got some different views, and that's okay, as long as we're speaking, theologically around this book. We're not going to have it all figured out perfectly, but just think of that thought. I added the word almost, actually. I tried to soften it a little bit. The author said, truth always results in conflict. Yikes. I think that's why Mondays can be brutal for me sometimes. Because for whatever reason, I'm given boldness when I'm in this place, and I'm not necessarily a bold person naturally, but when I get the Word of God in me and all these things, man, all of a sudden I become bold. And I am saying things that are completely antithetical to the world. And I feel the weight of it sometimes. It's never going to keep me from not doing it. Focus. Intimacy is a result of truth. Truth always results in conflict. Do you have to go through conflict in a relationship in order to have intimacy? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. If you never had any conflict, you've never gotten to some deep issues. You've been superficial. And churches can operate on this level greatly with passive aggressiveness with one another and never really speaking some truth and entering into potential conflict. Hopefully we can do it in healthy ways. Many of you are living, this author says, in superficial relationships because every time you start to deal with an issue, there is conflict and you back off and you say, forget it. Don't want it. Don't want to make waves. I want to make peace. We won't deal with the issue and we'll pretend it's not there. Cal Naughton Jr., Talladega Nights, friend of Ricky Bobby. Constantly, what's he say? I'll just bury that one way down deep too. Cal just kept burying it way down deep. What happened? Had an affair with Ricky's wife, caused a divorce in the midst. They weren't friends anymore. Life became chaos. All because I'll just bury that one down deep. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. Superficiality is a false peace. Proverbs 28:23. In the end, people appreciate frankness more than flattery. I guess I'd like to tell all the rocket scientists right now, this is far more harder than anything you do in rocket science. Rocket science is tangible and easy, and it's based on mathematical laws. And even though I don't have the mind for it, it's easy. I'm always putting myself down for not being a rocket scientist. The balance between 1 and 2. Like I said, great tension, but sometimes we've got to get to 2 and not be passive aggressive. And in our Stephen ministry and my work as a chaplain, as parents, I will tell you, one thing we bring to relationships and caregiving, if we can just remain calm. There is so much power in calm. But we don't do that in our families, do we? We try to apply the Stephen ministry training to our families. Go for it. Practice as much as you can. But families, oh man, that's a train wreck. But we can try and not give up. There's all kinds of complicated boundary issues involved with families. And we can give better care to somebody we don't live with just because there are some clear boundaries. Well, we'll never give up on families. Families are the foundation of our society. But when it comes to speaking the truth, just leads us to the last point. Maybe have this one in mind. How to use your words well. Speak the truth in love. Usually has to do with calmness. A calming presence we talk about in pastoral care. in Stephen ministry. Never get all riled up. Never be shocked by somebody's stuff. You're shocked by somebody's, oh, I can't believe you did that. What is that? That's rejection. And you are losing their trust. And you are not listening well. Comes the time to speak, and when we got to speak the truth in love. Proverbs 12:18. Thoughtless words can wound as deeply as any sword, but wisely spoken words can heal. There's something about this wisdom literature when given to you very literally. Sometimes you can ask, what's going on here? So we're using some different translations here. You can check these out on your own. I think you'll find, as I did, that these things really communicate the heart of things. Thoughtless words can wound as deeply as any sword, but wisely spoken words can heal. Oh, man. A lot of power there. Either wounding or healing. It's almost like there's no middle ground. Which one are we doing with our words? We need wisdom. We don't want to wound. Sometimes we do. It feels good. Wound. We're called to be healers. Have you ever heard anybody justify their insensitivity by calling it candor? They say something like, I just say what I feel. And they see that as a good thing. The Bible sometimes calls that person a fool. I just speak what's on my mind. Well, that can be dumb and tactless. We need wisdom. That's not a virtue. That's a vice to always just speak what's on my mind. Remember, we got to slow down. We got to guard our lips. We got to think before we speak. All these things. The Bible says you speak the truth in love. Proverbs 15:4, Living Bible says, gentle words cause life and health. Gentle words, calm presence. They cause life and health. That's Proverbs 15:4. We're in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 12:25, if you want to jot that down. A word of encouragement does wonders. Gentle words cause life and health. A word of encouragement does wonders. This is all wisdom, folks. Jesus said, mentioned him earlier. He said in Matthew 15:18, the things that come out of the mouth come from the heart. The things that come out of the mouth come out of our heart. I know you may not like it, but I know you ain't that much different than me. And sometimes my heart is bad. Sometimes my heart is, it's deceitful above all else. And it's vindictive and sometimes very unwise. Jesus' words here, wow, the things that come out of the mouth come from the heart. Again, to some of these folks, have you heard anybody say this? I just said something and I'm so surprised I said that. That's not me. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that was you. That's you. You say, where in the world did that come from? It came from your heart. That's where it came from. And sometimes we've got heart problems in our lives. And Jesus says the things that come out of the mouth come from the heart. The problems, I guess most of the time in all this wisdom about the mouth, the problem is not my tongue. The problem turns out to be my heart. I say hurtful things inside because I'm hurting. Maybe sometimes realize that as you listen. That's a good listening point. Somebody just said something hurtful to you. I wonder how they're hurting. What do I need to hear from this person? I say hurtful things because inside I'm hurting. Need a new heart from time to time. Or as a guy who believes in Jesus and has found salvation, I need to get reconnected to the new heart that God has already made in me. But sometimes my heart is fleshly. and isn't thinking about things of God so much. The good news is, folks, God specializes in heart transplants. You got to know that. God absolutely specializes in heart transplants. He can transform a life sometimes in an instant. He's got that kind of power. Sometimes it takes a lifetime. That's me. I was changed drastically as a young man, but I've been seeking to embrace these truths. We're growing in these things. We arrive when we see our Savior, Jesus Christ. Then we'll have all this stuff down. Some of you Christians need to get in touch again with that transplant that God has done in you. That soft heart that's able to connect with other people as Jesus was able to do so perfectly. He said hard things to people, but people wanted to be around him. It's like, tell me some more hard things, Jesus. Maybe instinctively they knew that, man, his words are freedom. He brings freedom to people's lives. God isn't there to hold you back, hold you down, take your fun away. He's there to offer you freedom. And man, if we can find freedom in our relationships by using our mouths well, man, that's an incredible freedom. Instead of wounding all the time, maybe we can bring healing to one another's life. Last thing to think about. This is from The Message. Proverbs 18:21. Words kill, words give life. There it is again. It's like two options, no middle ground. Words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose. Let's keep talking about these things, and let's listen to each other and learn some good stuff. Lord, we thank you that you have revealed wisdom. Lord, as far as we're concerned, this stuff is rocket science. Oh, it seems so simple. We can write it on a paper. We can come up with it as a point from your Proverbs. But boy, wisdom says we can really apply this stuff now and do it well. So give us wisdom, Lord, to know when to keep our mouths shut, when to seek to listen and listen and listen and then listen to some more, to draw out of somebody else's hurting heart. And then give us wisdom, too, to know when we should open our mouths, speak the truth. And Lord, when we do, may we do it as Jesus did. Speak the truth in love, that people might actually be attracted to the truth. Use us for good in our families and in the times we find ourselves in, Lord. Through simple faith in you, we've got you in us. That is an awesome thing. Let us know in every contact we come across, Lord, every relationship, every conversation we enter into, you are there with us. Let us be mindful of that, and let us seek to be influenced by your wisdom. We're here. We need you so much, Lord Jesus. Thank you for your cross. Thank you for the salvation. Thank you that you make these things possible in us. We can be people of wisdom. And we ask all this in your name. Amen.